Howdy, everybody. Hope you're doing good out there. Shasta College, Humanities 4, Film Studies. The last 4 lectures. We're winding down the semester. Hope you guys are hard at work on your papers out there. I know you are. You're going to impress me. Impress yourselves. Do it for yourself. Don't do it for me. I've read hundreds of these things. Some of you are really good writers, by the way. Some not so, but you're doing fine. Everybody's doing okay as long as you keep doing the assignments. And, I give you guys a little bit of wiggle room for being late. Yes, I take some points off. But I usually let a couple days go by before I close off the assignment. Anyway, I'm too easy. I know that. Anyway, it's all movies. We're supposed to love this stuff we're doing, and I hope you guys are getting something out of this class. So keep up on your journals. All the stuff is posted, handed in the journals next week. Final paper anytime between now and the end of this class, and of course the final essay, which I signed last week. I'm still grading the other essays. I'm still on number 6, I think. Anyway, it was warm today, folks. It's the summer's here. Stay hydrated. Early fire prediction. Anyway, I want to talk about a genre that maybe you love. Do I love it? I love all cinema. Do I watch a lot of musicals? Not really. I've seen a lot. Do you like musicals? Do you know what a musical is? The actors break into song and dance in the middle of whatever that is they're doing. And I'm going to cover a few today that are groundbreaking musicals, famous musicals. 1950s, there was one called Singing in the Rain with Gene Kelly, Donald O'Connor, Debbie Reynolds, famous movie it's a musical about silent films coming into sound. So it's set in the film industry in the late 1920s, early 30s, and how it's changing everything. And one of the most famous scenes ever is Gene Kelly dancing in the rain. I'll show some YouTube clips of it. You can see it if you've never seen it. Very entertaining, smart, entertaining and fun, and it says something. It's not just frivolous. And a little trivia for you, when he was doing that dance, which is very physical, Gene Kelly was a very physical dancer. He was very masculine. He wasn't as smooth or suave as Fred Astaire. No, he wasn't. He was a different sort of dancer. And so they're doing the scene where he's essentially, he's starting to fall in love. And you know how you are when you start to fall in love. You'll do something stupid like singing in the rain. He's not coming out of the rain. And it's pouring. It's pouring. Done on the back lot studio. It's all controlled. But they dumped how they do it. They have these sprinklers above their heads, and they dump the water down. And they have to dump lots of water down because the camera can't just see normal rain. You never see normal rain in a movie. It's always a torrential downpour. The reason why that is because water does not film very well on film. They have to light it all sorts of different ways. And so usually when you see a scene with rain, it's more rain than you've ever seen in your natural life. It's Hollywood rain. And he does this number where he's singing in the rain and he's doing some amazing physical jumps and leaps in the mud puddles. He is soaked. And they had to do it many, many times. And he was sick the whole time he was doing it. Yes, folks, he was sick. And I think he got sicker after he did this. And it was brutal. Although it looks fun and spontaneous, that's showbiz. That's what they do. So, Singing in the Rain. I'll show you a film clip. It's a preview. You'll see the famous dance sequences. It'll be on canvas. And I want you to look at it. And if anybody, I'll start a discussion. If anybody wants to talk about their favorite musical, tell me why. Why do you think they matter? Do they matter? They used to matter a lot more. We got away from the musicals when we got bogged down in the 60s with Vietnam War, politics, assassinations, civil rights, and people weren't that happy to be in a musical. There was some musicals in that era. Hello, Dolly, which was a huge bomb at the time and didn't set well with the youngsters. Maybe you saw it with Barbara Streisand. Am I right on that? Yes. And Walter Matthau came out, I believe, 69. But there was also Sound of Music, which was about 64 or so, and that was hugely successful. A kind of a story based on a real family that was in the Nazi occupied Germany, the Von Trapp family, and they did a musical of it. The Hills Are Alive with the Sound of Music. Julie Andrews. Maybe you saw it when you were a kid. Maybe it's one of your favorites. And that was a pretty big hit. But the young people of the day, the students, were not looking at musicals anymore. They wanted to see something grittier, more real, like the movies I showed you in that documentary or asked you to write about. Midnight Cowboy, Five Easy Pieces, The Graduate. That's what young people wanted to see over kind of what they thought was frivolous musicals. And so for many, many years, musicals fell out of favor in Hollywood. I'm sure there are some, but there's very few. The only one I could think of in the 70s, I mean, they did do Hair, which was a huge Broadway hit, and they did a musical. Milos Forman directed it. They changed it a lot for the movies, and a lot of people, and I'm one of them. I love the play. It was so different than the play. It had the same music, but that was about it. And a lot of people were upset that it wasn't really the Broadway hit. It just was another story with the same songs, which are great songs. That came out in the 70s. So did the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which when it came out was a complete utter bomb. Maybe you've seen it on Midnight Movies. The great Tim Curry's got a really great rock and roll soundtrack. When it came out in 1975, it was a huge bomb. Nobody went to see it. I remember seeing, I was living in San Francisco at the time. I was going to school, folks. And it came out. My girlfriend and I went down. I remember the street we're on. Here's a piece of something you need to know about me. I remember where I saw most of my movies. I'll remember the movie theater. And they're all not just in my hometown. It's wherever I was living, LA, Portland, San Francisco, Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'll remember the movie theater. Anyway, this was on Clement Street. We were the only two people in there. I'd seen the play before, and I loved the play. The music's great. The movie I wasn't that thrilled with. But now that I've seen it a million times, it's grown on me. It's funner than hell. It became a midnight phenomenon. They started showing it at movie theaters at midnight, and people start showing up dressed like the characters. Maybe you're one of those. And they started enacting scenes in the movie on stage as the movie was playing. And so it became this really a cultural phenomenon, and this very low budget movie made with mostly unheard of actors at the time. Tim Curry, believe it or not, Susan Sarandon is one of her first things. Nobody knew she was. Barry Bostwick. Became this huge cultural hit on the midnight circuit. It still plays. In Portland, there's a theater, the Clinton Street Theater. They still play it at midnight, I think once a month. And people still pack in. So it became like a community of people who wanted to live those parts and sing those songs and interact with the actors on the screen. Huge cultural importance. People must have needed an outlet. They must have been craving something. And it came out the same year that The Great Taxi Driver, one of the greatest films ever made, and the okay movie Jaws. I know you probably love Jaws. Came out the same year, but it got lost in the shuffle. People thought it was silly and ridiculous. It is, but there's also some beauty in it. Absolutely. The 70s had a great musical that won Academy Award in 1971, I think. Cabaret. Liza Minnelli. The great Bob Fosse directed it, based on the Broadway play, based on a series of short stories called the Berlin Stories. And it's in Nazi Germany before they went to war. It would be the 1930s in Germany, a very decadent era for German culture. And they're in this kind of seedy cabaret performing, I'm not saying they're prostitutes, but they could be. And it's great music, wonderful music. And that's been a perennial hit around the world. They do Resurrected as a stage play. I don't think they ever remade it as a movie, though. I know they haven't. Liza Minnelli, Judy Garland's daughter. Judy Garland was a great musical star of the 40s. She's in Wizard of Oz, folks. Plays little Dorothy. That's Liza Minnelli's daughter. And Liza won the Academy Award for it. Fosse, I think, won Best Director. But this is 2 or 3 musicals. That's how they'd fallen out of favor. And then 80s, I'd have to Google it. I can't think of any musicals in the 80s. There must have been something out there. The 90s, same deal. And then along comes the 2000s, and they did a musical with Richard Gere called Chicago, based on a Broadway play, based on Bob Fosse's great choreography. He had directed the first one on Broadway, but he had died since then, so he didn't direct this movie. And I was living in Portland at the time, and it was really enjoyable. They did a great job with Renee Zellweger and Catherine Zeta-Jones. These are people you wouldn't associate with singing. They did a great job. Richard Gere, he was wonderful in it. John C. Reilly played Mr. Cellophane. He was wonderful in it. They thought that was going to bring back the musical in a big way. Really, it didn't. But there's been other stabs at it since. Maybe you've seen new musicals like Les Miserables, which was a huge Broadway hit. Into the Woods, with about which Stephen Sondheim musical with Meryl Streep. Maybe you've seen that recently. It came out within the last 5 years. So every once in a while, the musical still has legs. Now, a lot of people think, well, it's absurd. How can you just be walking around somewhere and then breaking the song and dance? Well, folks, it's called cinema magic. There's no sense to any movie. Really, there isn't. It's all what you want to make it. If you want to believe it, you'll believe it. So if you want to believe that people breaking a song in the middle of whatever they're doing, you have to suspend your disbelief. And if you don't want to believe it, you're a curmudgeon. You can't enjoy anything. Now, Disney's done a bunch of musicals like Aladdin and Lion King. Did you see those? I bet you did. And so maybe musicals live on an animation. So it's a hard thing to say it's over and dead. Same thing with Westerns. Every time they say the Western is dead, here comes another Western, and it keeps it alive going a little bit longer. And I think in our cynical times, we think, oh, Westerns are so far in the past, and a musical is kind of silly, a bunch of people jumping around and singing. But it's not so silly, because art, cinema is there to show who we are at this moment in time, and it's important. And if you could do it with song to make the bitter pill go down easier, do it. There's going to be some musicals coming out of this pandemic. The pandemic blues is going to happen. We could do some meaningful stories with some music. Where am I here? Yeah, 1968. I was essentially, I don't know, 12 or something. My mother took me to see Oliver, and it was a musical, huge budget, and won Best Picture for that year. And it's based on Dickens, Charles Dickens, great novel, Oliver Twist, about a child who's born into like an orphanage, and then he's trying to break free and get out of that. It's got some wonderful music. It's a dark, dark story. Yeah, and 1968, it blew our minds. That musical, I'll never forget it. It has a lot of meaning, that musical, a lot of great songs, and a good story background. Charles Dickens, you can't go pretty much wrong with that. And it's going to be about the class struggle, poor against rich, educated against people who are not educated. And it covers all that ground with really good songs. And it has a sinister character, Oliver Reed, who doesn't sing in it, by the way, Sykes. He's a killer and a murderer and a thief. And he's up to no good, folks. And Fagin runs a pickpocket school with a bunch of orphans that he's taken from the streets. And Ron Moody won many, many accolades for playing Fagin. He's wonderful in it. If you ever get to see a modern day musical, it's set in the 1800s in England, but with great songs, great camera work. It won the Academy Award for Best Picture in the middle of the hippie movement. Think about that, folks. In the middle of the Chicago riots and the Vietnam War and Sam Peckinpah's Wild Bunch, this Oliver wins the Academy Award for Best Musical. So anyway, what's your guilty pleasure musical-wise? I know I've left a bunch out. So I'm going to post a discussion. Just say, what's your take on musicals? Have you ever seen one? Do you like them? You dislike them? Are they stupid? Are they corny? Would you like us to see a musical based on the music you like? Maybe it's time you write that musical. I'm not kidding. Do it. Anyway, keep up the good work, kids. I tried, it's no big deal, but I tried recording this earlier and it would not let me record. And so it's now seems to be working. I recorded this at 5 o'clock, but it was not letting it happen then, but now it seems to be working. Maybe there's too much business at YouTube or something. Anyway, hope you guys are taking in what you got to do. Go deep on these last assignments. You know what I want. You should know what I want. 2 more weeks of class, and then off to summer. Hope you guys have something interesting planned. I've got summer school. Good. I've got a job still. So on that happy note, go on and watch a musical this week. Share it on the discussion, and I'll post it. Share your just love of a musical. Just pick one. I could list a couple that I've listed here tonight. Watch Rocky Horror Picture Show and tell me if it's not cool. Watch Oliver. Mary Poppins. I'm a little too old for that, but maybe you aren't. Anyway, keep rocking out there, guys. And don't forget, everything is cinema. See you next time when the story of film continues.